meantime, we'll go ahead and get started because I know Joy's been on a couple of these. Emily, I think you've been on a couple too. So I'll kind of forgo some of that. Today's more of a fun one if you guys hadn't quite figured that out already. This one is more for our souls, if you will, as people that are workaholics by nature. I think we all struggle to find that balance. I think we all struggle to connect with people. I know personally right now, it's one of my biggest challenges of working so hard that I am personally struggling making connections with other women. It's my big challenge right now. And what I love about this conversation that we're going to be having with Tracy is this takes it to the family unit and kind of connecting on that. So this is more a tale, if you will, and I can't wait to hear her story as we kind of go through this. If Lori and Dee Chipko can figure out on their cameras, that'd be great, and be able to turn on faces, the more the merrier. But I'm going to turn this over. I've known Tracy for a couple of years now. In full disclosure, Tracy and I have worked together. I have been her support on the communication side. She's kind of been my boss. And so she and I were talking one day about this story, and I thought it was fantastic. So I'm going to turn this over to Tracy, let her get us started with a toast. So Tracy Sorrentino, here you go.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, thanks to Catherine and Brenda, because your energy here is really infectious, and I'm really proud and honored to be a part of this. So hopefully this story is at least a funny tale for you. But I'll start with the toast, and I'm gonna, butcher a quote that I found from Virginia Woolf, which is, because this is about to silence and to quiet, and how much better is quiet, the coffee cup, the table, to sit by myself with bare things, this knife, this fork, things in themselves, to ourselves being ourselves.
Cheers, everybody.
I'll come back to this in a minute. So I asked my son, I'm a working mom. I have 3 kids. I'm going to look at my notes from time to time here, so apologies for that because I can't keep things straight in my head otherwise. I work full time. I have a pretty intense job. I have 3 children, ages 11, 9, and 5. And my husband also works full time. And today I'm just going to talk a little bit about my 11-year-old and an adventure that we went on. I don't know about any of you, if you have kids, raise your hand. Okay, most of us have kids. I would say if you don't, then there's still some relevance here. So I always thought that as a mom, I'd spend these years at the sidelines and the bleachers, watching sports, shuttling kids back and forth to that. And that hasn't been the experience. Kids know who they are. And if you don't have kids, you know who you are. But my oldest has always been a very quiet soul. He was a quiet baby. He was a quiet toddler. He's capable of incredible rowdiness, don't get me wrong. And he's an incredible wit, but he is a quiet kid. And a couple years ago, I realized that I was really irritating him because I was always like, I'm clearly an extrovert. I'm about 80% extroverted, but I would ask him, invite your friends over, let's have a big party, come on over, let's do stuff. And it was making him really angry and really uncomfortable because he is most definitely not an extrovert. I realized that I could keep asking him these questions and making him angry and kind of pushing him away. But I was never going to change his personality. It's fundamental to who he is. And it's also awesome. So I try and find times to talk to him. And one of the places that turned to work well was he liked donuts. I mean, who doesn't like a donut? He would ask to run out and run errands on Sunday mornings. He'd like, can we just, go to the donut shop and grab a cup of coffee? And he doesn't drink coffee, but grab a hot cocoa and a donut. I'm like, sure. So we would do that from time to time. And then on a family vacation west, we stopped at Voodoo Donuts in Portland, which is like the mecca for all things crazy donuts. And that's where it really started. And on our family vacation a year ago this week, we did a road trip out to DC. And when you're going through Ohio on the highway, we saw this magazine. And it was, playing up all these great things you could do in Ohio and to boost tourism. And one of them was the Butler County Donut Trail. Can show you here's the passport. And I turned to him and I said, hey, we should totally do this. What do you think? And he goes, oh my God, Mom, we have to do it. We have to do it. Like, when can we do it? We have to do it right now. And I said, okay, well, we got to find a good weekend. We're going to need 2 full days. Then his sisters wanted to go. Is that okay with you? And he said, yeah, I love donuts and I love my family. This has to happen. So I asked my husband and he's like, oh no, I have a trial starting. I cannot. So I ended up on this adventure Memorial Day weekend a year ago with my 3 children and 3 nieces, all wrangled up into a minivan. And we rounded everybody up and went to suburban Cincinnati for the weekend. I'll jump right into the lessons. Minivans are awesome. That's actually not one of the lessons for the minivans, but it bears repeating. They're very useful for these sorts of endeavors. And I own my Honda honesty shamelessly. And so, but let's talk about the trail, because my quiet kid who never really engages with a lot of folks helped me plot the whole thing, because as you'll see here, there are 10 shops that you have to go, and it takes about 43 miles to go to all of them, and they run out of donuts. So you have to plot it. There's a map, there's a passport. And when that kid wants something, he is determined. So he perseveres, he plans, he's all over it. He sets reminders for me. It's really quite incredible, because as he once told me, he's like, you're a bit of a mess. So after a late Friday night, we got up at 5:30 on Saturday and headed out on the trail. And I'm gonna tell you the 7 stops we did on the first day: Stan the Donut Man, Milton's Donuts, Central Pastry, Martin's, where I needed a cup of coffee like I've never needed a cup of coffee in my life. I always tell Catherine this, that it looked like a church basement. It looked like I was about to go to a support group. And I looked at my niece and I said, this is a bad idea, isn't it? And she said, you only live once. It was the best cup of coffee I've ever had. A little, don't judge a book by its cover. It was perfect. And then we went to Jupiter Donuts, where we finally had some t-shirts. Then we went to the donut spot, and finally we finished day 1 with our 7th donut in a single day at Mimi's Donuts.
So did you, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
was there like beyond a sugar high at this moment? Because I can't imagine having 7. Did you have any other food in between?
So one of Zach's lessons, I asked him this, and one of his lessons was, you got to pace yourself. Every other shop have a donut. So he and his cousin tag teamed pretty quickly. They realized they could not eat all the donuts. So every other shop, they would get one and share it. And yes, there was a significant sugar high and a subsequent crash. So we went back to the hotel, we played at the pool, but it was great to see them all talking about their favorite donuts and helping each other to make sure nobody forgot their passport stamp, and just watching a little team interplay. And I sat back and I observed. I tried not to interfere. And then we went to dinner and everybody crashed at probably 8 p.m. So on Sunday we had a setback, because we learned that one of the donut shops was not open on Sundays. So there was bad planning. So we weren't going to be able to finish the donut tour, the trail. So we pushed on, we finished our last tour. One of the shops is considered optional. This one right here that's already stamped. We decided we had to do it because we were doing it all in, or we weren't going to finish it. And we made a plan that on our headway south during a Florida vacation in a couple weeks, we would take a detour to Cincinnati, hit the last shop, and get our passport stamped. So we finished up, 4 weeks later, and that was the final stamp. So we mailed them all in. And then, as I tell people, it's a lot of work for a free t-shirt. So, but my family, we all now have matching Donut Trail t-shirts, and you can see the back, which says, I devoured the Donut Trail 2017. And, it's a lot of work for a free t-shirt, but that really does miss the point of this particular adventure. So, what was the point, and why is Catherine and hopefully others, what's the point of this story, especially when you consider it, destroys the rules of parenting nowadays. There was very little healthy food. There was very little sleep, but it was not about that. It was really about the connection. And I sort of grouped the lessons in sort of 3 buckets. And one was that I wasn't listening to my son. And he talks to me all the time. He's very quiet, like I said before, and sometimes it's not with words. His style is different, and I have to pay closer attention to him. And again, it's not onerous or difficult, but he was telling me what he needed, and that was a connection. And I was lucky to have heard him, and that happened to come through a donut. And I've used that actually with other people at work, because sometimes, for whatever reason, people they aren't as direct as I might be, and that's okay. And so I've really learned to listen a little bit, maybe differently is the right word. So, I got lucky to have heard my son, but it can't always be luck. So listening, I have to remind myself of that. I learned a lot too. So I grouped them all in L's. I'm a communicator. So it's listen, learn, and look. I became very conscious of how I talk to my son. Things like, okay, he's quiet. Hey, what's wrong? Well, if someone's always asking you what's wrong when that's just the way that he is, that sends a pretty bad message to my kid. So I've learned to ask him, what's on your mind, or any interesting observations today, versus what's wrong. When the default for assuming quiet is something as bad as happening, that wasn't working for my family at that time.
Wow.
And so that was the other one is learning that. It's how I was talking to him was not particularly helpful. And the final piece was that look. I hear from my child's teachers all the time that, he's so quiet in class. He keeps to himself, and public school is really made for more extroverted kids, but he watches and he listens. And he says to me, yeah, I'm known as the kid who observes things. So I watched him that weekend, and he was so joyful, and he was so persistent at pursuing something that he was passionate about. And what he saw from me was that I was willing to go along with it. I can't, I'm a working parent. I always struggle with, I travel. How do you fit it all in? And he knows I can't fit everything in. So how do you fit in the importance? And what he observed, what he saw that weekend was that I cared enough to do something, and spend time and make those memories. And what he saw was an example I can be really proud of, because big or small, silly or serious, he sees me as an engaged parent. I'm completely imperfect. He's mentioned it many times, but all of us are. And what he sees, what the look I'm trying to model is, someone who's trying my best. So in closing, I just wanted to revisit that toast and just say, to quiet. This donut, this coffee, these things in themselves, himself being himself. Thank you.
That is fantastic. Cheers, everyone, for that one.
Cheers. So I know that was swift, but I don't know if you guys have parents. How old are your kids? And, how do you connect? Is it what you expected?
Joy, Emily, I'll let you guys jump in since I can see your faces, or even Lori or...
I'm going to refrain from jumping in because I may start crying.
Oh, Joy!
Have a donut.
Joy, that is beautiful.
I'm so touched. Can I tell you the other thing is that, you laugh about donuts. They're very trendy. You see them at Target. The other thing we learned out of this, we've gotten invitations to the Chicago Donut Fest, and we got our tickets, and it's made for, my kid doesn't connect through a soccer ball or basketball. Okay. But, and he also learned geometry. Did you know that donuts have a geometrical shape? It's not a rhombus or anything. It's called a toroid. So we've learned geometry. Advanced math is part of this as well. So I'll throw that out there.
Good.
Oh, thank you, Joy.
That warms my heart today, Joy. That is beautiful. And if Brenda were here, Brenda would be all with you if she were here today. So Emily, what do you think about all this? Because you've got a young one, right?
How old?
Yeah, so my Olivia is only 17 months old. So I feel like I'm just adjusting to the working mom balance, but she's high energy. So
yeah.
I struggle with coming home and from work and being like, I feel like I have no more energy to give. So I've had a lot of patience, because while I'm an extrovert at work, in the confines of my house, I want to be an introvert more. So
Wow.
Yeah, we talk about that, because I'll come home and you're just utterly spent. And it's like I likened it one day. I was talking to a girlfriend and I said, I feel like I have no more love left to give. And that's all they want. So it's like, if I've really had a rough one, I'll just lie on the couch and they sort of just glom onto me. And even at 11 and 9, it's like, they just want to be with you. They don't need me to like run around the block, but they just want to be with you, because I know that feeling. I don't know that there's a good answer to that.
Well, it's almost it's the same tactics, right? I loved your advice. I love your 3 L's, listening, learn, and look. And it's doing that instead of being high energy with someone it's the same thing. If your energies don't match,
right,
taking those 3 things and saying, okay, what is it that I can give at this very moment? And Emily, I feel for you, because I thought if I ever had a son, I only have a daughter. If I ever had a son, I don't know what I would do, because I have high energy, but I'm much like you, Emily. The minute I am done with my day, I am done. I've given every bit of energy that I have. And I've always said, if I had a boy, I would be screwed, because they're, that run around, and your daughter seems to be that person. And so I think it's trying to figure out how do you get some of that in reserve. But I loved her. I wrote them down, listen, learn, and look, because I think it's really powerful. I think it's powerful for work. If we look at our work environment of people that we deal with, and I loved to not ask what's wrong.
Oh, that was probably, you'll send out the resources. So I started reading a couple books, and one of them was Susan Cain is the author, and she wrote The Quiet Revolution. And she's like, you can be an introvert and turn it on, but then she wrote The Quiet Power of Introverted Kids. And I read that, and it really helped me kind of get in the head of my kid, because he can turn it on. He can turn it on, but he is fundamentally an introvert. And that is an awesome thing. So, but I talked to my husband about it too, because my husband's very balanced. But we were really making him angry and he was feeling bad. He felt like we didn't like him because of the questions we were asking. So that was probably the single biggest takeaway there was there's nothing wrong with being quiet.
No. Lori, do you have anything? Because you've got kids, correct? Is Lori hearing me? Is she on mute?
Yeah.
Oh, Lori's got herself on mute. Hang on.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, so my kids are in their early 20s. So I guess I've kind of survived most of this. And I guess my contribution for the day, if assuming we're all working moms, is when I see young women at work who are pregnant, I just go up and tell them that I've worked the entire time I was raising my children. And if there's ever a day where they're not sure that they can manage both, I will be happy to be a friendly ear. And nobody's ever taken me up on that. It's kind of interesting, but I say that very frequently to working moms because there are some times when making both things happen is very, very challenging. So I think that's part of passing it on and being a woman leader in a company is to show how you can do both.
Well, and I think I love what you're saying there, Lori, too, because it goes to what Tracy was saying about that she showed up for her son. And I think showing up is 90% of the battle, right? And being present for them in the way that they need. And for coworkers who may need a moment, for friends that may need a moment, I think that showing up is critically important. And I do think we have to be reminded a lot, because we're stubborn women, aren't we? That there can be that support system. But I think for the kids, I just think this is absolutely fantastic. Tracy, didn't he do something with this though? Didn't he do a book report? Oh, you're on mute. Wait. For some reason you got
I'm
muted.
unmuted
There you
by
go.
the host. So keep in mind, I have again, we talked about it, a quiet, self-contained fourth grader. So he comes home about a week after the donut trail and he said, I told my teacher about it. And he's been fortunate. His last few teachers have just really sort of kept an eye on him. Because again, he's the quiet kid in the classroom, observing everything. And so he said, I need your help. I said, well, what do you need my help on? And he said, I need to tell my class about it. And this kid, who, again, doesn't say boo to anybody, did a 12-slide PowerPoint presentation chronicling his journeys on the donut trail, which he presented to his fourth grade class. And that was, I wish I had a picture of it for you, but he put, by Zachary Wee, she goes with, help from mom, because I did help him with the PowerPoint slide. But we put in all our pictures and his favorite stop. And he gave a PowerPoint presentation to a fourth grade class. So it's really helped him, again, it gives him an opportunity to kind of get out of that shell and share what's in his head, because when he does that, it's awesome. His teacher sent me a note, it was great to see him shine that way. So yeah, the kid who said nothing has no fear of public speaking.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, they are saying in the, with introverts in general,
Mm-hmm.
that they're saying the new workspaces are actually detrimental to introverts. And the fact that it was an extrovert who created the new workspaces.
Oh gosh.
And they're saying it's incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a woman who talks on TED Talks who talks all about it, but
that might be her, Susan Cain. She's done a couple of TED Talks.
Oh, is it her? That might be her.
It might be. She's one of them.
But talking about that open work environment and talking about you go into meetings and people expect a solution to be made right then and there, but people think differently and people need to be given that runway. How can we take what Tracy's told us just out of curiosity and apply it into the work environment? Because, it's one of the things that I think is one of the biggest challenges. How do you take when you've got high energy personalities with people that are introverts and bring those together?
That's
Any
a tough
suggestions?
one. Well, some emotional intelligence on the part of the person leading the meeting would be a great start. To read the room and kind of figure out who's who and engaging those people. So if you see someone who's not participating, why, and maybe kind of pull them out. But you can it makes it stressful. The noise and the pressure, are there ways to de-emphasize that? That might help.
I think that's really important. But again, I have to say, your three words, the listening, the learning, and the looking, I think are really critical. And I think I'm probably the biggest at fault for always saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Like, why isn't everyone smiling? Come on, what's wrong? Right. So I am probably, and just your simple phrase of instead of like, what's on your mind?
Yeah.
Is huge. And then also just looking and seeing how things are being perceived, how he sees the world, I think, or how people would perceive the world. And again, asking kind of powerful questions about that perspective. What are you witnessing? What are you, even going as far as using the L word when you're doing that, but that would be really, really interesting. I did want to ask though, and you said it, was you have to listen differently. How does that transpire?
So he's telling me things, but he's not, so I'm not necessarily listening with my ears. So he's not saying the words a lot of the time. He's showing me with actions or body language or things like that. So I'm kind of listening with how I observe him, just as simple as that.
Interesting.
And then for him too, he's very rarely completely direct. He sort of talks a little bit around it. So sometimes I have to, okay, where are you guiding me to?
Oh, interesting.
But it's usually like I'm listening to him, he's talking to me, and sometimes it's not with words.
So it's funny you say that because Brenda, she unfortunately is traveling, but she said there's a book that she just read. She said, Catherine, she goes, it's not usually my type of book, but it was like defining how you love. And it was how people show their love. Like she was saying that some people buy affection, not meaning to buy it, but they demonstrate how they care about people by buying things for them. Or someone that could be very touchy-feely, always has to, physically touch. Or it could be very complimentary language. I'm letting you know how much you mean to me because I'm complimenting you so much. Right. Or I'm showcasing the value you give to me in my life. And so there were a whole bunch of them. So it's kind of, that's what you're kind of also referring to on the listening piece.
Well, yeah. I mean, my husband cooks. He's not particularly affectionate, but he shows his affection for his family, his immediate family and his extended family. He cooks for us, and that's awesome. And I feel like I'm showing this to him by sort of indulging this hobby of my son's, and yeah, he knows that I'm as into it as he is. I don't want to eat as many donuts as his. I don't like the fancy ones, but it works out. But yeah, showing how you do that differently. There are many ways to do it.
So let's go around real quick before we end for today and say how we all show our love. Like Joy, can you tell us how are you expressing like your love to people? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, for me, actually, it's kind of ironic. I think my 10-year-old, it sounds exactly like your 11. It's, yeah. And yes, I mean, and I'm laughing because I think probably doing the donut fail with him would probably be super phenomenal. He would love that. So there you go. I think, yeah, seriously, I think he would absolutely love that. But yeah, I mean, for me, expressing love with him is just really about, you're right, just sitting there, being there, letting him be with me. We don't actually do anything, just as long as we're in the same room. So, it's
and where are you at, Joy? Where do you live?
Where do I live? In Arizona.
Oh, you're in Arizona. I am sure there's some sort of donut thing around there.
No doubt.
We will look up before any trip. We'll look up the local donut shops and make them part of the adventure.
I think that's fantastic. Emily, how do you love? How do you show your love?
Mine is definitely through quality time and experiences. So I want to go and do something with you, and disconnecting from any sort of outside, distraction. So putting down the phone, and I want to go do something active generally.
Wow, that's cool. Lori, what about you?
Joint activities. So things that we enjoy together. So I guess those are experiences and actions too. So I'm a very significant college basketball fan, and I live with a bunch of Jayhawks. So this last weekend, texting with my husband my husband and my sister-in-law and my son, who's a huge basketball fan. And then I must say I'm a University of Kentucky graduate, so we didn't fare so well. But, March is a big month for us in our house. So those kinds of things.
That is awesome.
I registered for a class at my church yesterday and just added my daughter because I knew she would go too. So we'll go do that together.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go to KU to tour the campus with my 16-year-old daughter for college. So I told her we could not go at a better time because everyone's going to be very excited. But I will end it on this. I am a bit of a rarity when it comes to how I express love. And I'm a buyer. I buy. I pick up the tab. I am constantly like, if my daughter's having a down day, I'm like, let's go shopping. I did that with my mom too, before she passed away. It was very much just spoil, like do everything I could to make sure that she had the best, things that she needed. And so it's always been that way. I don't know why, but that's how I express. And so I kind of want to read that book to find out, like, is there something wrong with me? So yeah, it's different. I love the experiences, but I'll be the one who picks up the tab, not because I've got the money to do so. It's just how I tend to behave, which is not always good on the pocketbook. I'm not going to lie. And so I got to rechannel that. So you guys, with all that, we are at our time. And so I can't thank you all enough. Tracy, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, this means the world to me that you did this and shared this.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone else got something out of it.
Yes,
Thank you.
Tracy.
Oh, thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Fun. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.